The Sol system was a graveyard. Solarii adjusted her ocular membranes, filtering out the excess radiation from the red giant sun that had once been Sol. Now it simmered like a dying coal, bloated and bitter, its surface vomiting flares into the void. The ship's hull shimmered in the starlight, silver and blue, as the research crew disembarked in orbital pods. Approaching Earth remains, Captain Thrack's voice crackled through the comms, its tone clipped and wary. Maintain formation. Watch for instability in the surface crust. Earth hung below them like a frozen screen. The oceans were gone. The continents, if they could still be called that, were blackened smears of volcanic glass and collapsed cities. Even from orbit, Solarii could see the deep scars where the atmosphere had ignited and folded in on itself. And yet, there was silence. No signal, no resistance, no life. Solarii, a xenoanthropologist from the Euthendari Collective, had begged for this assignment. Her kind had studied 1,000 extinct species, but humans, Homo sapiens, were different. Legends wrapped around them like shrouds. They weren't just extinct, they were forbidden. The Galactic Accord had strict laws, no resurrections. Extinct meant sacred. Dead civilizations were to be remembered, not revived. And humanity was dangerous. Solarii's claws clicked softly as she stepped out of the pod onto what had once been the eastern edge of a continent. The terrain was a black, jagged plain of obsidian. Razor-like shards crunched beneath her boots. She squinted toward the horizon. Scattered skeletons of skyscrapers clawed at the ash-filled sky, their spines bent by heat and centuries of neglect. The smell of carbon lingered, even through her helmet. "We are standing on the remains of a Class 4 civilization," she said quietly into her recorder. "Extinction level, total. Planetary viability, 0. No flora, no fauna. Yet trace elements of synthetic materials are detectable: nanocarbon, compressed alloys, military-grade composites. There was a war here, a very deliberate one." "Confirm," said Vero, her assistant, a gelatinous morel from the third pod. "High-energy discharge patterns all over the crust. Thermonuclear signatures. Directed orbital bombardment. Civil war, most likely, or extermination." Solarii didn't reply. Her eyes were locked on something in the distance, a monolith, half buried in molten rock. It rose maybe 20 meters high, glistening obsidian with veins of silver running down its sides like tear streaks. As she drew closer, she noticed that it was not a natural formation. It was carved. Intricate markings, worn by time and fire, etched their way across the surface in a spiraling language. Human English, stylized and meshed with binary code. Solarii activated her drone scanner. Memorial Site 7B///neural vault. Access restricted. A neural vault. She froze. According to myth, the last humans had tried to upload their minds, some insane mass digital exodus, to escape the collapse of their biosphere. But the Accord had ruled all such claims as speculative fiction. No civilization had ever managed full cerebral digitization at scale. But what if humans had? "What are you seeing?" asked Thrack, who had joined her at the base of the monolith. His scales flickered with unease. "A mind vault," Solarii said, voice trembling. "Still partially powered. There's a low-energy field running beneath the substrate. We're standing on a functioning system." "I don't like this," Vero murmured. "Nothing this old should still have power. Nothing without intention." Solarii reached out, letting her gloved hand hover just above the surface of the stone. "I need to interface," she said. "You will not," Thrack growled. "The Accord, to study is not to resurrect. I can establish a read-only interface. No activation, just a memory imprint." Thrack hissed in frustration but said nothing. Solarii had rank here, and more importantly, she had obsession. She drew a slender rod from her belt, an Archeo interface calibrated to non-invasive analysis. Gently, she tapped it to the surface. The monolith hummed. At once, the obsidian lit up in lines of pale blue. Light pulsed outward in waves. The ground beneath them trembled. In her visor, thousands of glyphs began scrolling, encrypted neural matrices, locked data chains, and a phrase repeated again and again. "Grave Mind Protocol. Status, standby." "Gray Mind," Vero echoed. "That's not in the archives." Solarii's breath caught. Her pulse spiked. She opened a comms channel to the ship. "Begin uplink." Full data sweep. We found an active node of human technology. This is unprecedented. The vault suddenly clicked. The sound was impossibly loud for something that hadn't moved in thousands of years. A low rumble echoed across the plain. Above them, the sky shimmered and then flickered. Something's wrong, Thrax snapped. In orbit, the research ship's sensors began going wild. Gravitational anomaly near Luna, the AI intoned. Detecting movement. Unregistered satellite reactivation. Multiple energy signatures across the system. Solari's eyes widened. We triggered something. From the far edge of the crater, a plume of dust exploded into the air. A long dormant launch platform had opened. A sleek, needle-shaped object shot into the sky, trailing blue plasma. It wasn't a missile. It was a drone, and it was broadcasting. Gravemind protocol online. Sentinel units awake. All systems. Test pattern alpha. Thrak grabbed Solari and yanked her back toward the pod. We're leaving. Now. No. This is history unfolding, she protested, even as Vero was already scrambling back to the transport. This is a trap, Thrak barked. You don't resurrect humans. They wrote the damn book on vengeance. As the transport pods ignited and roared skyward, Solari looked down one last time at the monolith. It was glowing and humming, and then it spoke, not in sound, but in thought, streamed directly into their minds. We remember. We remain. We are the grave. Above them, in the orbital debris belt, a long-dead warship's engines lit up for the first time in over 10,000 years. And in the dark, something massive stirred beneath the moon's surface. The moon had moved, not enough for an untrained eye to notice, barely a fractional tilt, a submicro adjustment in orbital velocity, but the instruments aboard the HFY Nomad caught it instantly. Alarms wailed across the command deck. Orbital irregularity, barked Systems Officer Kylex, his spines flaring in agitation. Luna's mass has shifted by 0.003%. Something under the regolith just activated. Captain Thrak clenched his mandibles, pacing before the bridge holo display. The outline of Sol's planetary bodies shimmered in real-time projection, the Earth still a black marble beneath them. But now Luna, the moon, pulsed red on the map. Telemetry from the surface team? He asked. We've retrieved them, said Vero, now sitting in one of the quarantine cells, still coated in dust and ash. But something responded when Solari touched that monolith. She triggered something big from her decontamination pod. Solari leaned forward against the glass. It wasn't just a memorial, she said. It was a key. A key to what? Thrak snapped. To a defense network, she said, eyes wide. The humans called it the Gravemind Protocol. I only glimpsed fragments in the data chain, but it was tied to full-scale planetary extinction scenarios. If humanity ever fell, really fell, this protocol would wake up. You're saying that thing knew humanity was extinct? Kylex asked, aghast. It's been waiting this whole time. Solari nodded. That monolith was not passive. It was listening. A silence fell over the bridge. Then, without warning, every monitor aboard the Nomad went black. A second later, they flashed back on, not in Euthendari script, but in archaic human English, overlaid in blood-red characters. Gravemind protocol confirmed. System failure. Species termination. Initiating stage 1. A deep, resonant hum filled the ship. It wasn't physical. It was cerebral, like a voice behind your thoughts, like something remembering you from the past. Solari's voice dropped to a whisper. It knows. Far below, the Earth's burned surface trembled. Beneath the layers of vitrified crust, hidden under collapsed cities and sealed bunkers, machines that hadn't moved in 100 centuries stirred. Power conduits, buried in tectonic vaults, crackled with returning current. Satellites blinked online. Vaults opened. But more than that, on the far side of the moon, a hatchway opened that had not seen light since the last humans died. Inside was a ship, not one like the aliens had seen before. Not of metal or crystal or even plasma engine design. This ship was a skull, roughly the size of a dreadnought. Its frame had the unmistakable structure of ribcage, spine, and mandibles, grown from alloys, bone composites, and carbon-fused neural gels. The necromantic-class vessel designation etched on its core read, SHV Thanatos Rex, Soul High Vengeance Bone Ship, Fleet Code, Exojudicium. Its eyes, dark red reactors, came online. It screamed silently into the void. On board the Nomad, the crew reeled from the sudden surge of data flooding the ship's systems. "It's hijacking us," Kylek shouted. "Firewalls failing, ancient protocol is breaching every AI system on board. I thought the Accord AI was quantum locked." Vrak bellowed. "It is, but this is older. It predates the Accord by millennia. It's not an AI in the traditional sense. It's a mind," Solarii finished. "Millions of them, the last minds of Earth, digitized, warped by death and memory. They called it the Gray Mind." "Why would they do this?" one of the junior officers whispered, while he behind. "This?" Solarii turned toward them, her voice grave. "Because they knew no one would help them. The Accord watched them die, recorded it, studied it, but never intervened. Humanity didn't just fear extinction. They expected betrayal. The Grave Mind is not a warning. It's a promise." A new alert rang out across the bridge. "Object detected rising from Luna. Massive energy signature. Unknown engine configuration." A live feed snapped into view, a gliding monstrosity emerging from the moon's surface. Its outer hull looked like overlapping vertebrae, its propulsion system based on something entirely unknown. It bore no visible weapons, yet its very form was terrifying, designed to intimidate and to hunt. Solarii recognized the design. The bone ships, ancient myth, dismissed by scholars, said to be grown rather than built, operated by hybrid intelligences, part AI, part soul imprint. Not crude, but infested with the last wills of a dying people. Frak stepped back, his gills pulsing rapidly. "We need to alert the Accord. Now." "I already sent the signal," Kylek said, teeth bared. "But this system's been isolated. Whatever the Gray Mind is, it controls soul space now." Another alert blared. Multiple heat blooms in the Orc cloud. Dormant vessels, reactivating. On the holomap, distant stars began to flicker, red icons appearing by the dozen, then hundreds. Solarii stared, unblinking. They didn't just bury weapons on Earth. They seeded the whole system with hidden fleets. "You're saying this has been a trap the entire time?" Vero murmured. "No," Solarii said. "A tombstone. And now it's ringing." Meanwhile, in a nearby Accord observation station in the Tau Ceti system, scientists observed strange signals emanating from Sol. A centuries-old directive triggered in the database. Project Echo. If Sol emits broadcast code GH88, Hellmarch, proceed with immediate containment protocol. If unable to contain, activate last contact measures. Assume humanity's remains are hostile. Back aboard the Nomad, Solarii found herself standing alone in the archive chamber, gazing into a projection of the human monolith's decrypted data. It scrolled endlessly. Images, faces, screams. Entire cities consumed by plasma fire. The final war of mankind, recorded in 10K resolution, played on an endless loop. She touched one, and it expanded. A woman holding a child, shielding it from a burning skyline. A voice, weeping through static. "Even if we fall, let them know what we were. Let our rage be felt across the stars. We were humanity, and we do not go quietly." Solarii's breath caught. "Vrak," she said over comms. "They weren't trying to survive." "Then what?" "They were trying to make sure the universe never forgot them." A long silence followed. Then, incoming signal, unknown language detected. The bridge screens filled with a distorted voice, metallic, layered, ancient. The words translated slowly through the ship's struggling AI. "This system is now designated Vengeance Domain. Foreign entities must evacuate immediately. Final warning. Enforcement in 300 seconds." Kylek swallowed. "They just gave us 5 minutes to leave." Vrak nodded. "Get us out of orbit. Plot any exit trajectory. Full burn." Solarii hesitated. She watched the monolith's memory fragment fade, then turned from the archive. "It's not just about Sol," she said. "If those ships reach other systems, if the Grave Mind spreads." Vrak looked at her grimly. "Then we just woke up the last war humanity ever started." The Hesari Nomad tore away from Earth orbit, engines roaring through the void, yet the weight of what they had unleashed clung to every soul aboard. Captain Thrax stared at the holomap, watching as the red pulse of the Thanatos Rex and other bone ships rose from Luna and began their slow, deliberate glide toward deep space. Status report, Thrak demanded. Kylex's spines twitched with tension. All systems functional, but the gravemind interference is spreading. Our AI firewalls are barely holding. Sensors are jammed with encrypted signals, too numerous and complex to decode in real time. Are we clear of Luna's influence? Thrak asked. For now, Kylex answered. But the bone ship's energy fields extend much farther than expected. They're forming a network, a neural web linking the fleet. Vero's gelatinous form shimmered as she approached Solarii. I have run the initial xenolinguistic analysis on the Gravemind broadcasts. It's a collective consciousness, a digital gestalt of humanity's last minds merged with machine, a self-preservation matrix designed to protect their legacy and exact revenge. Solarii nodded slowly. A digital ghost army. More than that, Vero added. It's adaptive, learning from us. Below, the moon's surface had transformed into a strange cradle of necrotechnology. The Thanatos Rex had released smaller scout vessels, spidery, skeletal drones with limbs like insect legs made of braided carbon bone and circuits. They scurried like mechanical arachnids across the lunar dust, probing communications arrays and research stations. Their purpose was to locate and capture any surviving human knowledge or technology scattered in the system. On board the Nomad, Solarii paced the command deck, her thoughts swirling. Do you think the Grey Mind has a goal beyond defense? She asked Thrak. He looked up from his console. The message was clear: evacuate or be destroyed. So I'd say yes. It's hostile, but why? Solarii said. They're extinct. What's the point of vengeance if no one's left? Vero floated near, her voice a bubbling whisper. Maybe the point is precaution. The Gravemind doesn't want humanity revived by others. It's a quarantine system, a firewall against resurrection. Kylex added, remember the Accord's laws. No extinct species is to be resurrected. The Gravemind is enforcing the ultimate version of that. Kill the body, kill the memory, kill the possibility. Solarii shuddered. A protocol of finality. Suddenly, the Nomad's sensors blinked frantically. Multiple signatures incoming from the asteroid belt, Kylex said. Unknown vessels moving at high speed, heading directly toward us. Thrak cursed. Enemy or rescue. Vero's gelatinous eyes narrowed. Unknown, but their emission signatures are low, stealth optimized. The crew prepared for contact. As the ships emerged from behind the dense clusters of rock, the crew gasped. They were bone ships, smaller than the Thanatos Rex, but unmistakably crafted from the same skeletal materials, with glowing red eyes and menacing ribcage hulls. They moved in perfect formation. This is no accident, Thrak said. They're hunting. Solarii's mind raced. We're being chased by humanity's ghosts. Back on the surface of Earth, deep in the ruins of a shattered city, a faint light flickered. Inside a buried bunker, the last human minds persisted, trapped in stasis within neural cores. Their consciousnesses were fragmented, yet still connected through the gray mind. Some flickered with panic, others burned with hatred. One among them, a commander named Asha, stirred. Her neural avatar looked down at the ruined world around her, anguish burning bright. We are the dead, but we remember, she whispered. We must awaken the fleet. We must take vengeance on those who abandoned us. Back on the Nomad, the pursuit was relentless. Evasive maneuvers, Thrak ordered. Prepare weapons systems. Solarii frowned. Our weapons might not work on them. Their bodies are biomechanical, part organic, part machine. Conventional projectiles might not penetrate their bone armor. Then we adapt, Thrak growled. Prepare the quantum disruptors. The crew worked feverishly as the bone ships closed in. Suddenly, the Nomad's comms crackled. Unknown vessel. Identify yourself. Thrak answered, voice steady. This is the Hesari Nomad, Accord research vessel. We come in peace. The response was a cold hiss of static before a voice spoke. You carry the taint of the betrayers. You will be purged. The chase escalated into a deadly game of cat and mouse. The Nomad wove through asteroid fields, dodging skeletal drones that lashed out with plasma tendrils. The bone ship's AI fought with primal intelligence, decisive, brutal, and relentless. Solarii stared at the view screen. These vessels, They're not just machines, she said quietly. They're memories made flesh. Thrak nodded. The last echo of humanity's final war. Meanwhile, in the outer system, the gravemind spread. Signals jumped from ship to ship, neuron to neuron, forming an ever-growing network of shared consciousness. Every human mind digitized in this matrix added to its power and will. It was a hive mind of grief and rage, a digital revenant intent on ensuring humanity's story did not end with silent extinction. Back aboard the Nomad, a sudden blast rocked the ship. Shields down to 30%. Kylek shouted. Hull integrity compromised. Return fire. Thrak yelled. Quantum disruptors flared, lancing through the bone ship's carapace, shattering rib-like plates. One of the attackers screeched and burst into shards of glowing bone. But more were coming. The captain realized with dread that this fight was just beginning. Solarii looked out at the stars. They had awakened a dead empire. And now, humanity's ghosts hunted the living. The vacuum of space was not silent, not anymore. Where once the void had been calm and infinite, it was now filled with a chorus of bone ships screaming through the void, their skeletal hulls gleaming dimly under the distant light of Sol's dying sun. The Hesari Nomad limped through the debris of the asteroid belt, battered and bleeding energy. Captain Thrak stared at the ship's status board, shields flickering, weapon systems strained, and communication arrays partially down. The relentless pursuit of the Gravemind's fleet had pushed them to the brink, but retreat was not an option. Solarii stood beside him, her eyes haunted by the weight of knowledge she carried. The truth of the Gravemind was not just one of vengeance. It was a testimony to humanity's final hour, an echo of a war that had consumed an entire species. Status update, Thrak demanded. Kylex's many eyes flicked rapidly between his consoles. We lost 3 hull compartments to the last attack. Life support is holding, but degrading. The quantum disruptors are overheating. Our weapons may fail if we keep this up. We're outmatched, Solarii said quietly. Their technology isn't just advanced, it's fundamental. Bioengineered at a cellular level, integrated with AI that thinks like a living organism. Then we fight smarter, Thrak growled. We have to understand them to outmaneuver them. Suddenly, the main screen flickered, then stabilized to reveal a shadowy figure aboard one of the bone ships, a human face twisted in both anguish and fury. The projection was grainy, fragmented by interference, but unmistakably human. Who are you? Thrak asked, voice hard. The figure spoke, voice layered with digital distortion. I am Asha, commander of the Gravemind fleet. You trespass on a tomb that is not yours. Humanity died to protect this system from your kind. We will not suffer your interference. Solarii gasped. Asha, she's one of the last human minds preserved in the Gravemind. Thrak narrowed his eyes. And she's making war from beyond the grave. The broadcast ended abruptly, replaced by an incoming volley of plasma tendrils. The Nomad shook violently. Evasive maneuvers. Thrak shouted. Return fire. The battle raged anew. A brutal clash of living machine against living ship. Every bone ship moved with predatory grace, attacking in swarms and retreating before the Nomad could land decisive blows. Kylex gritted his teeth. Their tactics are adaptive, learning from our maneuvers faster than we can respond. Vero floated closer to Solarii, her form shimmering. The Gravemind's collective memory is a weapon. It remembers every attack, every weakness. It evolves through battle. Hours passed, or was it days? Time had lost meaning in the endless darkness punctuated by flashes of energy and debris. Finally, a warning signal blared. Incoming transmission from the outer belt. Kylex reported. A fleet of allied vessels. The Accord has responded. A wave of relief swept through the Nomad's crew. The newly arrived fleet was vast, sleek starships armed with the latest weapons technology. But even with their arrival, the battle was far from won. The bone ships shifted focus, unleashing their full might against the combined force. The battle intensified, echoing the final desperate fights humanity had once waged millennia ago. Solarii watched as the Gravemind's fleet synchronized their attacks with terrifying precision, as if guided by a single, immortal commander. The echoes of that ancient war are alive, she whispered. On board the flagship of the Accord fleet, Admiral Ringthal observed the battlefield through thick reinforced glass. His face was grim. "This is no ordinary enemy," Ringfall muttered. "They are the last remnants of humanity's greatest failure. We fight ghosts, not just of flesh, but of mind and memory." Back on the Nomad, Thrak made a decision. "We cannot win by force," he said. "We must find a way to communicate, to reach Asha and the Grave Mind." Solarii nodded. "If we can show them we are not the betrayers, maybe we can stop this cycle of revenge." They prepared a daring plan. Using the Nomad's neural interface, Solarii connected directly to the Gravemind's data stream, risking mental assimilation to reach Asha's consciousness. The ship's AI hummed nervously, trying to maintain stability as Solarii's mind merged with the vast collective. Inside the Grave Mind, Solarii was bombarded by memories, visions of firestorms, last-ditch battles, and the agonized faces of humanity's final generation. She saw Asha, standing among ruins, raising her voice in a digital screen. "You were warned," Asha's voice echoed. "We carry the memory of your failures. You will not awaken what must remain dead." Solarii gathered her courage. "We do not seek to revive your war. We seek understanding. We want to break the cycle." For a moment, silence. Then Asha's voice softened. "Perhaps there is a chance." Outside, the battle raged on, but a fragile hope had taken root. The Nomad and the Gravemind fleet were no longer just enemies. They were the last heirs of humanity's legacy, fighting to decide what that legacy would become. The silence between battles was a hollow one. The Hesari Nomad drifted cautiously through the shattered remnants of the asteroid belt, her hull scarred but still resolute. The uneasy truce with the Gravemind was fragile as the cracks spreading through the ship's worn plating. Captain Thrak leaned over the command console, his face grim in the dim red light. The transmission with Asha had altered the stakes. No longer were they simply prey fleeing from a spectral enemy. They had glimpsed a chance for something more, understanding, perhaps even peace. Yet, the danger remained immediate. "The Gravine fleet is regrouping," Kylex reported, his multifaceted eyes scanning sensor data. "They have called in reinforcements. New bone ships, larger and more heavily armed, are emerging from deep space." Vero floated beside Solarii, her gelatinous form shimmering faintly. "They call it the Ghost Fleet, vessels constructed from the very bones of extinct human colonies, powered by neural cores filled with the memories of the dead." Solarii swallowed hard. A fleet of memories. Out in the void, the Ghost Fleet moved with eerie precision. These were no longer ragged survivors of humanity's collapse, but a vast armada, organized and deadly. The Thanatos Rex returned to lead this formation, its enormous skeletal frame dwarfing even the largest Accord vessels. Behind it stretched line after line of bone ships, their glowing red eyes like 1,000 angry stars. Back aboard the Nomad, Thrak called the senior staff to the command deck. "We face a new reality," he said. "The Grey Mind is no longer defensive. It is preparing to strike at the heart of the Accord itself." Solarii's voice was steady but carried a weight of urgency. "If the Ghost Fleet attacks the core systems, the Accord will suffer catastrophic losses. We have to act." Thrak nodded. "Agreed. But how do we fight an enemy that knows our tactics before we make them? An enemy that is our past?" Kylex suggested a risky approach. "We must strike at the Gravemind's central neural core. Sever its mind from the fleet." Vero's eyes flickered. "That core lies on the edge of the Kuiper Belt, in a derelict space station, once a scientific outpost." Solarii's heart sank. "It's a suicide mission. The Gravemind's defenses there are formidable." Thrak's jaw clenched. "Then we send a small team. Stealth and precision. We have no other choice." Preparations began immediately. Solarii volunteered to lead the infiltration team, alongside Kylex, Vero, and a handful of the Nomad's best pilots and engineers. Their plan: infiltrate the station, plant an EMP device strong enough to disrupt the Gravemind's neural network, and extract before the fleet could respond. As they suited up, Solarii's mind raced with doubts. The Grey Mind was not just a machine. It was a mind filled with memories, fears, and hatred. Could they destroy that without destroying humanity's legacy altogether? The team's small shuttle slipped away from the Nomad, weaving through dense fields of icy debris in the Kuiper Belt. The station loomed ahead, a ghostly relic half buried in frozen rock. Inside, the corridors were dark and cold, lit only by the flickering glow of damaged systems. The eerie silence was broken only by the soft hum of grave-mine sentries, mechanical watchers that moved like shadows. Solarii led cautiously, each step echoing memories of a long-lost humanity. They reached the core chamber, a vast cathedral of circuitry and bone. Kylex moved swiftly to set the EMP device. Countdown initiated, he whispered. Suddenly, a low rumble shook the station. The fleet is responding, Vero said. They know we're here. The sentries swarmed, and a fierce battle erupted. The team fought with desperate determination, blending technology and instinct. Solarii fired precise bursts from her plasma rifle, cutting down attackers with unyielding resolve. The EMP detonated, sending a pulse through the station. For a moment, the gravemind faltered. The bone ships blinked off in the distance, their glowing eyes dimming. But the reprieve was brief. Asha's voice echoed through the station's comms, calm and resolute. You may disable this node, but the mind is infinite. We are Legion. Solarii knew the fight was far from over. Back on the Nomad, the crew braced as the ghost fleet regrouped, their red eyes flaring with renewed fury. Yet beneath the rage was a whisper, a faint hope. The Gravemind's hesitation hinted at a fracture in its will. Solarii's mind clung to that hope. Humanity's past was a legacy of struggle and survival. Perhaps, just perhaps, their future could be one of redemption. The vacuum of space was a canvas painted in blood-red and shattered dreams. The Hessari Nomad drifted like a wounded predator in the shadow of the Kuiper Belt, battered but defiant. The Ghost Fleet's pulse had been momentarily silenced by the EMP strike, but the cost was clear. The Gravemind was wounded, but far from broken. Captain Thrak paced the command deck, his silhouette sharp against the flickering holodisplays. His eyes, hardened by countless battles, reflected a storm of uncertainty. The Gravemind's reaction to the strike was unlike anything they had predicted. It was not just a machine reacting, but a consciousness fracturing. Report, Thrak barked. Kylex's multiple eyes swiveled rapidly, analyzing streams of data. The Gravemind's neural network shows signs of fragmentation. Subnetworks are isolating themselves, like fractured shards of a shattered mind. Solarii frowned. Is that good? Vero hovered beside her, her form pulsing softly. It is both opportunity and risk. The Gravemind's unity weakens, but with it comes unpredictability. Some factions may seek peace, others vengeance. The Nomad's communications console crackled to life. A voice, clear and resolute, echoed through the ship. This is Commander Asha. Thrak's jaw tightened. The human face, once a haunting echo, now appeared steadier, yet marked by conflict. The Gravemind is breaking apart. Asha continued. We face not just external enemies, but internal civil war. Solarii's heart raced. Internal civil war? Asha nodded. Fragments of the Gravemind seek different paths. Some desire to end this endless cycle of violence. Others wish to eradicate all who remain outside their collective. The Nomad's crew exchanged glances. The enemy was no longer monolithic. It was fractured, vulnerable. Thrak made a decision. We reach out to the factions seeking peace. If we can form an alliance, we might end this without further bloodshed. The Nomad maneuvered closer to a nearby bone ship, smaller than the Thanatos Rex, but still imposing. Its name was the Vestige. Solarii prepared to send the peace envoy. Whatever happens, remember, this is a chance to redefine humanity's legacy. The ship's communicator blinked with an incoming signal. A female voice, softer than Asha's but with a fierce determination, answered. I am Lyra. We are the remnants, those who seek to end the war. Solarii felt a surge of cautious hope. Lyra revealed the truth behind the Gravemind's fragmentation. When the EMP pulse severed the central core, many subnetworks lost contact and developed independent wills. Some, like Asha, sought survival through war. Others, like Lyra, wanted reconciliation. But there is danger, Lyra warned. The faction called the Purifiers believe all outsiders must be purged to preserve purity. Thrak's face darkened. Then time is short. The Nomad formed an uneasy alliance with the remnants. Joint efforts began to mediate with fractured factions, exchanging data and memories to heal rifts. Solarii interfaced directly with Lyra's network, sharing centuries of human history, hope, failures, resilience. Yet, the Purifiers were relentless. They launched a sudden assault on the Kuiper Belt outpost where the remnants had regrouped. The Nomad's crew scrambled to defend their fragile allies. Thrak coordinated the defense with cold precision. The battle was brutal and unforgiving. Purifier-boned ships, sleek and brutal, tore into the defenses with ruthless efficiency. But the combined forces of the Nomad and Remnants fought with desperate courage. Solarii piloted a strike squadron, weaving through plasma fire to disable enemy weapons platforms. In the chaos, Solarii caught sight of a Purifier commander, her visage eerily familiar. It was a distorted projection of Asha, corrupted and fanatical. "You cannot stop the purge," the commander hissed. "Humanity's last shame will be cleansed." Solarii fired, her plasma bolts searing through the hull. The Purifiers retreated, but the cost was high. The Remnants' outpost was in ruins, and many lives were lost. Thrak grimly surveyed the battlefield. "This war is far from over," he said. But amidst the devastation, a spark of hope remained. The fractures within the Gravemind had created cracks where understanding could grow. Solarii's mind lingered on the words of Lyra. "Legacy is not the past. It is what we choose to build." As the Nomad prepared to leave the Kuiper Belt behind, Solarii gazed out into the void. Humanity's echoes were scattered across the stars, some filled with rage, some with hope. And in those fractures lay the chance for a new beginning. The void was darker than usual, a thick veil of cosmic dust and fragmented ice swirling between the distant stars. The Hesari Nomad slipped through the shadowed corridors of space with calculated silence, careful not to draw attention from lingering Purifier scouts. Captain Thrak stood at the command deck's viewport, arms crossed, eyes narrowed as he observed the fading lights of the Kuiper Belt behind them. The battle for the fractured Gravemind had cost dearly, but it had also opened a door, a sliver of hope that some part of the lost humanity might still choose a different path. "We need to build on that hope," Thrak said to his officers. "The remnants are fragile. The Purifiers are ruthless. If we're to survive, we must find allies beyond the Nomad and these fractured fleets." Solarii stepped forward, her expression resolute. "I've been monitoring encrypted channels. There's a shadow network operating beyond the outer systems, exiled human factions who rejected both the Accord and the Gravemind." Kylex's eyes gleamed. "Rogue elements, operating in the void like ghosts. They call themselves the Shadows. Skilled, elusive, and fiercely independent." Thrak considered. "We need their skills and their ships. Reach out. Offer alliance." The Nomads set course for the Nebula Fringe, a turbulent sector marked by swirling gas clouds and magnetic storms, the perfect cover for secretive factions. As they approached, encrypted messages crackled in. A gruff, authoritative voice answered. "You tread on dangerous ground, Captain. Why should the Shadows trust the Accord, or any fleet claiming to represent humanity's legacy?" Solarii replied calmly, "Because the Gravemind threatens all of us. Its war will consume every last remnant of human life, unless we stand together." There was a long pause. Finally, the voice said, "We are willing to listen, but trust must be earned." The meeting took place aboard the Spectre, the flagship of the Shadows. The ship was unlike anything the Nomad had seen, stealthy, angular, and wrapped in layers of cloaking technology. Its hull bore the scars of countless skirmishes, a testament to the hard life its crew had led. The Shadows' leader, a woman known as Vexa, stood to greet them. Her eyes were sharp and calculating, her voice laced with skepticism. "You come with promises," Vexa said, "but what do you offer in return?" Thrak met her gaze. "Survival, a future, the chance to end this war." Vexa studied them silently before nodding. "We will join the alliance on one condition. You accept our terms." The terms were harsh. The Shadows would maintain autonomy, answer to no fleet command, and operate by their own code. Solarii frowned. "Can we trust them to hold the line?" Thrak smiled grimly. "Trust is a luxury we cannot afford. We take what we can get." The alliance was forged, not in hope or friendship, but in necessity and mutual survival. As the Nomad and Spectre prepared to leave the Nebula Fringe, reports came in. The Purifiers were massing near the inner systems, preparing for a decisive strike. The Gravemind civil war was coming to a head. Solarii and Vexa spent long hours strategizing, blending the Nomad's firepower with the Shadow's stealth and sabotage tactics. Vexa revealed the Shadow's specialty: infiltration and disruption of enemy supply lines, crippling fleets before battle even began. "We don't win by fighting battles," Vexa said darkly. "We win by making the enemy bleed long before the first shot is fired." Their first joint operation targeted a Purifier supply convoy transporting neural cores, the heart of their communication and control network. Using the Nebula Fringe's storms as cover, the Shadows slipped past Purifier patrols and planted explosives on key vessels. The attack was swift and devastating. Purifier communication faltered, and their fleet's coordination broke down. Back on the Nomad, Thrak watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. "This is war on our terms," he said. "We fight smart. We fight together." But even as the Alliance gained ground, shadows lurked within their ranks. One night, Solarii received a coded message, a warning. "There is a traitor among us," it read. Someone feeding the Purifiers information. Solarii's stomach tightened. Betrayal could unravel everything they had fought for. She shared the message with Thrak and Vexa. The three agreed to tighten security and begin a discreet investigation. Trust was already scarce, and suspicion now poisoned what little peace remained. Days later, a shadow operative was caught attempting to transmit data to a Purifier scout. The revelation rocked the Alliance. Vexa confronted the traitor, her voice cold and unyielding. "Your loyalty was a lie. You betrayed your own." The operative's defiant glare did little to mask the fear beneath. The Alliance moved quickly to root out any further leaks. Solarii and Kylex worked tirelessly, tracing encrypted signals and monitoring crew activity. Every shadow was scrutinized. Despite the internal turmoil, the Alliance pressed forward. They launched a coordinated strike on the Purifier's forward command station, a fortress carved into an asteroid, bristling with defenses. The battle was fierce. Shadow infiltrators disabled security grids from within, while the Nomad and allied ships bombarded external fortifications. In the heart of the station, Solarii faced off against the Purifier commander she had seen before, the corrupted projection of Asha. Their confrontation was a clash of ideals as much as weapons. "You cannot stop the purge," the commander hissed. "This is humanity's reckoning." Solarii's reply was unwavering. "Humanity's reckoning is not destruction, it is survival, and we will choose our own fate." The command station fell. The Purifier fleet retreated in disarray. The Alliance had won a critical victory, but the war was far from over. As the Nomad and Spectre regrouped in the Nebula Fringe, Thrak addressed the crew. "We have made powerful enemies and powerful allies, but the greatest battle lies ahead." Solarii looked out into the stars, feeling the weight of their fractured humanity pressing upon them. The Alliance of Shadows was fragile, but it was the first true light in centuries of darkness. The Nebula Fringe, once a sanctuary of swirling gas clouds and shifting shadows, now hummed with tension. The alliance between the Hesari Nomad and the Shadows had forged a fragile beacon of hope against the fractured Gravemind and the relentless Purifiers. Yet beneath the surface of this tentative unity, unseen forces were stirring, threatening to fracture the alliance itself. Captain Thrak stood on the command deck, eyes scanning the holomap that flickered before him. The recent victory at the Purifier command station had dealt a critical blow to the enemy, but intelligence reports hinted at unsettling developments. "Solarii," Thrak called, voice steady but edged with concern. "What have you uncovered about the traitor situation?" Solarii approached, her expression grave. "Our investigation into the leaks has revealed more than just one betrayer. There's a network, an embedded cell within the Shadows, possibly linked to Purifier sympathizers. They've been covertly sabotaging operations and feeding intel to our enemies." Thrak's jaw clenched. So the Shadows harbor shadows. The revelation sent ripples of distrust through the alliance. Vexa, leader of the Shadows, convened an emergency council aboard the Spectre. The room was tense, charged with suspicion and unease. "I did not come here to be betrayed by my own," Vexa said, voice cold. "These infiltrators threaten everything we've built." Thrax's gaze met hers. "We must root them out before they destroy us from within. Our survival depends on it." The council agreed to launch a sweeping internal investigation, employing both technology and old-fashioned interrogation to expose the traitors. As the investigation unfolded, Solarii found herself drawn deeper into the web of deceit. Accessing encrypted communication logs, she discovered disturbing patterns, secret meetings, unauthorized transmissions, and encrypted messages cloaked in layers of deception. One name recurred: Kalen, a senior shadow operative known for his cunning and ruthlessness. Solarii sought out Vexa. "Kalen is at the center of this. We need to confront him before he can do more damage." Vexa nodded grimly. "I will handle it." That night, Solarii watched as Vexa confronted Kalen in the ship's shadowed corridors. The confrontation was fierce, a clash of wills and words. Kalen's voice dripped with venom. "You think you can change the fate of this war with your naive alliances? The Purifiers offer order. The Remnants offer weakness. Only through purity can humanity survive." Vex's eyes blazed. "Your purity is fanaticism. You would destroy us all for a hollow ideal." The duel ended with Kalen escaping into the depths of the Spectre, leaving a trail of destruction behind. The hunt for Kalen intensified. Thrak ordered all ships to tighten security and prepare for possible sabotage. Meanwhile, Solarii and Kylex worked to decrypt Kalen's last transmissions, hoping to uncover the Purifier's next move. They uncovered plans for a devastating attack on the Nomad's home base in the Orc Cloud, a hidden outpost vital for the Alliance's supply lines. With time running short, the Alliance prepared to defend the outpost. Vexa led a stealth squad to intercept the Purifier's strike force before it could reach the Orc Cloud. The operation was perilous, pushing the Shadow's infiltration skills to their limits. During the mission, Solarii piloted a squadron to provide air support, navigating treacherous asteroid fields as they engaged enemy ships. Amidst the chaos, Kalen reappeared, leading a Purifier detachment aiming to sabotage the outpost's defenses from within. Solarii faced him once again in a brutal showdown aboard the outpost's command center. The battle was fierce and personal. Kalen wielded an experimental neural disruptor, attempting to sever Solarii's connection to her ship's systems. But Solarii's determination and her bond with Kylex proved stronger. She outmaneuvered Kalen, disabling his weapon and forcing him into retreat. Though victorious, the Alliance suffered heavy losses. The Orc Cloud outpost stood, but barely. Thrak addressed the weary crew, his voice resolute. "We've weathered the storm, but the Gravemine's fracture has unleashed chaos unlike any we've seen. We must stand united or fall divided." As the dust settled, Solarii reflected on the fragile nature of alliances built on distrust. The Shadows had proven their worth, but the threat of betrayal lingered like a shadow in every corner. Yet amid the darkness, a deeper truth emerged. Humanity's strength lay not in uniformity, but in the resilience born from diversity and discord. The Alliance prepared for the next phase, a final push to heal the Gravemine's fracture and end the war. But in the deepest recesses of space, the Purifiers regrouped, their fanatical vision burning brighter than ever. The final battle loomed on the horizon. The war-torn expanse of the Sol system lay stretched before the Alliance like a scarred battlefield awaiting its final reckoning. After the harrowing defense of the Orc Cloud outpost and the bitter betrayal within their ranks, the Hesari Nomad and the Shadows now faced a stark reality. The fractured Gravemind was not just a broken consciousness. It was a symbol of fractured humanity itself. If they were to end this war, they had to heal more than just physical wounds. They had to rebuild trust and unity among themselves. Captain Thrak stood on the bridge of the Nomad, the weight of command heavier than ever. His weathered hands rested on the console as he gazed out at the stars that blinked like distant promises. Behind him, Solarii was deep in conversation with Vexa and Kylex, their voices low but urgent. The Purifiers are massing their fleets near the core worlds, Solarii reported. Their goal is to crush the last bastions of resistance before launching a final assault on the Gravemine's central node. Vexa nodded grimly. We've suffered losses, but this may be our best chance to strike back. We can't let them sever the Gravemind entirely. If they do, the war will be endless, fragmented, and vicious. Vrax's voice was steady but resolute. Then we unite. Every fleet, every faction, every human, no matter their past grievances or scars, we fight together. Gathering the fleets, the Alliance sent out calls for reinforcements to scattered human remnants across the outer systems. Fleets that once fought each other now responded to a singular purpose. The Nomad became a hub of diplomacy and coordination, its corridors bustling with delegates from rival factions. Solarii found herself in tense negotiations with representatives from the Accord fleets and even some Purifier defectors who had grown disillusioned by their leadership's fanaticism. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. An emissary from the Gravemind itself, a fractured echo named Leora, contacted the Alliance. Unlike her fanatical counterparts, Leora was a voice of reason and hope, a fragment of the original Gravemind consciousness that had not been consumed by war. I seek peace, Leora transmitted. The Gravemind's fracturing is destroying us all. If we do not reunite, humanity will perish. The plan for reunification. With Leora's cooperation, the Alliance crafted a daring plan, a joint assault on the Gravemind's core station, where the fractured consciousness resided physically and digitally. This station was a fortress of shifting defenses, guarded by Purifier zealots and automated sentries. It was also the battlefield where the war's outcome would be decided. The plan required flawless coordination. The Shadows would infiltrate and disable external defenses. The Nomad and allied fleets would provide overwhelming firepower, and a select team, including Solarii, would attempt a direct digital link with Leora to heal the Gravemind's fractured mind. The assault begins. As the fleets approached the Gravemind core, tension mounted. The void around the station pulsed with energy, a visible reminder of the consciousness housed within. Vex's shadow operatives slipped through sensor nets and launched precise strikes against the station's shield generators. Explosions rocked the perimeter, and automated defenses faltered. Solarii piloted her squadron with deadly precision, covering the Shadow's advance and engaging Purifier fighters. Meanwhile, the main fleet unleashed a barrage that shattered the station's outer layers into the heart of the Gravemind. With defenses breached, Solarii and a small team boarded the core station. Inside, the environment shifted between physical corridors and digital constructs, manifestations of the Gravemind's fractured consciousness. Leora's voice guided them through the labyrinth. You must repair the connections, heal the broken links. Only then will the Gravemind become whole again. The team faced digital guardians, fragments of corrupted data, and Purifier AI constructs. Solarii's combat skills were tested both in physical combat and cyber warfare as she battled to clear pathways. Healing the fracture. At the heart of the station, Solarii interfaced directly with the Gravemind's core. Her mind merged with Leora's consciousness, a flood of memories, pain, and hope washing over her. She saw humanity's rise, its splintering into factions, and the birth of the Purifiers, a group consumed by fear and fanaticism. But she also saw the strength of human will, the capacity to forgive and rebuild. With Leora's help, Solarii worked to weave the fractured consciousness back together, patching corrupted memories and restoring lost connections. The Purifier's last stand. As the Gravemind's core began to heal, alarms blared. Purifier forces launched a desperate counterattack, pouring into the station in waves. Solarii's team fought fiercely to hold the line, buying time for the healing process. Vex's shadows returned just in time, their stealth and sabotage turning the tide. The battle was brutal, a clash of steel and willpower echoing through the station's halls. Unity forged in fire. Finally, the Gravemind stabilized. Leora's voice resonated with newfound clarity. The fracture is mended. Humanity's collective consciousness begins to heal. The Alliance's ships rallied, pushing back the remaining Purifier forces. Captain Thrak addressed the combined fleets. Today, we proved that humanity's greatest strength is its unity, born from our differences and forged in our struggles. The war is not over, but we have taken the first step toward a future where we stand as one. A new dawn. As the station's systems hummed with renewed energy, Solarii looked out at the stars. The echoes of the past still lingered, but a new chapter was beginning. The Alliance had faced betrayal, loss, and despair, but through it all, humanity's spirit endured. In the vastness of space, amid shattered worlds and fractured minds, the boned ships of Soul sailed onward, carrying the hope of a united future. The vastness of space had never seemed more alive or more uncertain than in the hours after the Gravemind's core was healed. The fractured consciousness that had torn humanity apart now pulsed with a tentative new unity. Yet, the war was not over. The Purifiers, though shattered and diminished, still lingered, fanatics unwilling to surrender their vision of forced purity. Captain Thrak stood on the bridge of the Hesari Nomad, staring out at the swirling nebulae beyond the viewport. The Alliance fleet, larger than ever, prepared for one final push to purge the remnants of the Purifier threat from the core systems. Beside him, Solarii tightened her grip on the controls of her fighter, a storm of emotions churning inside her. The battles they had fought, the losses they had endured, all led to this moment. The horizon ahead was not just a battlefield, but the line between extinction and survival. Rallying the forces, the fleet assembled in a crescent formation, ready to spearhead the assault on the Purifier stronghold, a massive orbital citadel cloaked in energy fields and bristling with defense systems. Vexa, her dark eyes sharp with determination, addressed the Alliance commanders. This fight will demand everything we have. The Purifier's resolve is fanatical, but we have something they lack: our humanity. Thrak nodded. We fight not just for survival, but for the future of all who call this system home. The plan was bold. While the fleet engaged the Citadel's defenses head-on, Solarii and a strike team would infiltrate the stronghold to disable its core power grid, crippling its shield systems. Into the inferno, Solarii's squadron sliced through enemy lines, navigating a storm of plasma fire and automated turrets. The Purifier fighters were relentless, their desperation making them unpredictable and deadly. As they breached the Citadel's outer perimeter, Solarii felt the weight of history and fate pressing down. This was the culmination of years of struggle, the final horizon to cross. Inside the Citadel, corridors twisted in labyrinthine patterns, alive with security drones and traps. The strike team moved swiftly, shadows among shadows, neutralizing threats with silent precision. The heart of darkness. Reaching the power core chamber, Solarii and her team found the core guarded by a formidable Purifier commander, Cadius, a man whose fanaticism was matched only by his combat prowess. Their battle was fierce and brutal, steel clashing with energy blades, gunfire echoing through the chamber. Solarii's agility and tactical mind kept her one step ahead, but Cadius was relentless. With a final, desperate move, Solarii disabled Cadius's weapon systems and forced him into retreat. The team then set charges on the core's power conduits. The fleet's gambit. Outside, the Alliance fleet launched a coordinated assault on the Citadel's shield generators and weapon platforms. Captain Thrak led the charge aboard the Nomad, weaving through flak and enemy fire with precision. Vex's shadows executed surgical strikes, sabotaging key installations and creating chaos among the Purifier ranks. Despite heavy resistance, the Alliance pushed forward, their unity and resolve turning the tide. Sacrifice and triumph. As the charges detonated, the Citadel's shields flickered and collapsed, exposing it to the full fury of the Alliance's firepower. In the chaos, Solarii's squadron covered the retreat, engaging enemy reinforcements. But the cost was high. Several allies fell, their sacrifice sealing the victory. Thrak's voice came over the comms, steady despite the losses. Hold the line. For humanity. For the future. A new dawn. With the Citadel's fall, the Purifier command structure disintegrated. Many surrendered. Others fled into the unknown. The Gravemind's restoration began to ripple across human networks, knitting together the fractured minds and memories that had divided humanity for so long. Solarii, Vexa, and Thrax stood together on the Nomad's bridge, watching the first light of a new era dawn over the stars. Thrax spoke quietly. We faced the darkness and held the line. Now, we build what was broken, not just in the Gravemind, but in ourselves. Epilogue. Beyond the last horizon. In the months that followed, the Alliance worked tirelessly to rebuild and reconcile. The Grey Mind, once a fractured war zone, became a beacon of cooperation and shared knowledge, guiding humanity toward a future shaped by unity rather than division. Solarii took on a new role as an ambassador, bridging the gaps between factions and fostering understanding. Vexa returned to her people, leading efforts to integrate the shadows fully into the human collective. Captain Thrak, ever the steadfast leader, prepared the Nomad for new voyages, exploring uncharted territories, carrying the story of humanity's resilience beyond the last horizon.